Hello, and welcome to the Pricing for the Planet podcast, the podcast that explores the intersection of business and sustainability. In today's world, we cannot talk about business and not talk about data and AI. That's why I'm super excited to host William. William, thanks for being here.
Hello, Fabien. Thank you for having me.
So today's episode is a special episode about data and AI. So that's why I think I'm super pumped to have William. William, you know the drill. We always start from the end in this podcast. So what would be the key takeaway you would like the audience to remember from this podcast episode?
The key takeaway will be that data and AI are getting more and more hype, more and more developed. It will evolve in many ways in the future. And it's definitely something that sustainability officers, that carbon officer, biodiversity officer need to have in their mind because it will help them in their daily usage, in their reporting, in their measurement, in the data quality, in working with suppliers. So even if there are clear impacts on environmental issues, social issues, they need to have it in mind to help them in their global CSR policies.
Awesome. And William, I think you are the perfect example of the mix between sustainability and data and AI. Can you explain a little bit your background and journey so far?
Yeah, so to introduce a bit about my background, I have a training, a college training on environmental impact, marine impact first, and then sustainable development. I work in various CSR direction as a CSR officer. So I was working on the reporting, on the data collection, data calculation, carbon exercise, ISO 1401. I would say the classic way with like Excel files, SaaS tools, and having multiple stakeholders internally and externally. Then I joined the WWF because I wanted to work in an NGO more related to nature projects, to agriculture projects. So for more than 3 years, I managed partnerships with companies to like be a critical friends of big corporates on how they can tackle their impacts, their emission, um, develop in another way to protect nature, to reduce their carbon impacts, reduce the pollution they put in the atmosphere. And during my time in the WWF, I saw that IT sector, data, AI were getting more and more in the front of the scene, and it comes with an impact. Today, the IT sector have more impact than the aviation, but we know more the impact of the aviation. It's um, more assured. We know that when we take the plane, we have an impact. We know that we need to reduce it. All the major industry player are trying to find solutions, but in the IT sector, it's less tangible. Like when you go on a website, when you go on Netflix, when you use ChatGPT, you might not know that you have an impact. You have an carbon impact, you have a water impact. So it's less tangible, and that's why I wanted to work more on these topics. So I joined first Capgemini, and more recently, a year ago, I joined Ekimetrics, which is a leader in data science and AI for businesses, meaning we try to tackle the most important and hard use cases for company on business and performance and on sustainability, because sustainability relies on data. Like when you do a survey within CSO and sustainability officer, the main pain point they have is the data. Do I have the correct data? If I don't have an actual data, how do I do the estimation? How can I be sure of the emission factor? Then when I want to go to supplier data, to scope 3 data, it's a whole new world for me as a sustainability officer. So how do I treat that? What are the databases? What are the framework I can use? So when you have in your company people that are specialized in data science, in AI ops, ML ops, it's very easy for them to understand the um, problematic, the issues that we can tackle within carbon, within biodiversity, within reportings, and they can adapt classic ML models, classic AI models, classic LLM models for these issues, for this data, and it's like big, from starting to the classic CSR world, doing all of that manually with Excel, and now seeing what we can do with data science and AI. It's like very exciting to work on this problematic and issues.
Absolutely. No, 100%. And maybe, William, can you explain maybe the change of the role of data, how the role of data evolved in sustainability, over the past, decade or like the past 5 years?
Well, it evolved a lot because, like, from 5 to 10 years, um, it was like maybe none. There was no data scientist in the CSR direction. There was a lot of struggle getting the data, having the right estimation. As I said, we used Excel files, SharePoint, like even evidences, it was through mail. So if at the start you didn't have a strategy on that, there were some SaaS tools like Enablon at the start, but it was they like managing data, but managing data from scope 1 and 2. Like it was like let's try to have all my buildings, and for all my buildings the electricity consumption, the heating, the gas, and even today it's very hard to get those because when you have sensors, obviously they can fail. When you do some data recuperation within your utilities, also they do estimation, so it's estimation that you do an estimation. So it's very hard to have this data lineage, this data accuracy. And more what we see through the days is an understanding that data is the pain point for CSR officers, because obviously they had stakeholders, NGOs that pointed some lacks, some mistakes in the reports. We had companies that were like showcased by the media by saying, well, we are net zero, we are carbon positive, but when you deep dive on the carbon data, it's only scope 1 and 2. They don't include the scope 3. We know scope 3 is like the main um, emission for like many companies. It's in the scope 3 and it's very hard to measure. So we had through the year this culture of we need to be more data driven. We need to have maybe a data science in the direction. We need to have a specific data model within our data lakes. So more and more we also see IT teams, data teams that build ESG data models, because it's other type of KPIs. For regular data model, you have like operational data, you have finance data, you have HR data. Now you will need to have sustainability data, so carbon, energy, electricity, workforce. You will need to have connection between the data lake, because in some countries like France, you have specific regulation on HR, and not all employees can access and can edit HR data. But when you do even a DPEF, a rapport de durabilité in France, or a CSRD, you will need to access this HR data. So there will also have some issues in data architecture, data clean room. So it's also a whole new world for sustainability people, and like obviously, and it's a great news that more and more they um, have this data culture. They stakeholders um, impose that to them the standards. Also, we saw more and more standards, more and more precision in the standards. At some point, 10 years ago, it was like you need to have the total of your emission, scope 1 plus scope 2 plus scope 3. Now, with some standards, you need to have them all detailed, all the subscopes for the consumption as well, for the biodiversity. You need to measure or estimate the impacts on a precise site, so you don't aggregate fishes and carrots in different type of sites and factories, that you had to have like broader indicators that don't mean anything. So it's very good news to also have more detailed and in-depth KPI to be able to measure and track.
And I think you mentioned something super important is the the depth of the data required by the sustainability team, because it's not just carbon data. It's like you mentioned, HR. It's a bunch of like data and different domains across the board.
Yeah, exactly. You have environmental data, but it's not only carbon. You need also to measure water, waste, usage, generation, recycling. Um, you have then social data, so all the HR data from your own workforce, but also on your supply chain, because more and more, like we had Loi Sapin 2 in France, but now we have the CS3D in Europe. So you need to be able to measure the risk of your operation on all the steps of your supply chain. So if you are an apparel companies with like a big supply chain with um, factories in Asia or South America, you need to be able to measure the environmental impact of these factories, but also what are the labor practice, what is the wage, is it a decent wage, how do you reduce the risk from these people when they go to work, regarding pollution, regarding security, like do they have tools to assure their security in the workplace. Like in Europe you have a lot of things with ergonomy, etc., but in this country maybe they don't have the equipment to work correctly. So it's like it's a great news to be able to that the main company is accountable for that. You also have operational data regarding industry processes. Like you need to be able to explain that you don't waste um, energy flux, you don't waste operational processes. You need to identify that, to do so efficiency. But obviously for this operational data, like company already had processes, policies, models, because it's very cost effective for them to like optimize a supply chain, optimize industrial process, buildings, factories. And then you have the financial data, because more and more, and that's also the new thing, rather the like old CSR way. Now you need to be able to put money um, in the same in parallel to the risk. Like I need to be able to, in my financial accounting, estimate what are going to be the climate risk on my company. Like, is there is a heat wave in an IPCC 4 scenario, because I have offices in Europe, this will be the risk. This is the money in terms of well, it's just my
We
cat
have a
trying
guest. We have
to.
a surprise guest.
Yeah, he wants me to talk about biodiversity more, but I will get to that definitely. So yeah, you need to estimate the climate risk, to estimate the cost you will have, and to provision the money as well. So for like big companies with also supply chain in Asia, South America, Africa, when you have higher risk in terms of climate change, in terms of heat waves, in terms of floodings, um, well, they will need to estimate that as well, and to put in place policies to reduce this risk and to protect their employees and their suppliers.
For sure. So I think one of the key message here, it's like now the sustainability teams needs to become at least, like fluent in data, and they
Yeah.
probably need to become expert in data.
Yeah, and also they will need to stop working in silo. That uh, or like 15 years ago, sustainability people, maybe they were in a closet. You just take them out of the closet to do the mandatory reporting, to do the compliance. But now you need to work with data people. You need to work with finance people. You need to work with HR. You need to work with your C levels, because it's linked to their strategy. Like, what's the point of having like, I will say a clean, let's say a clean CSRD report, but you keep producing uh, goods or services that harm the environment. So you need also to work on the strategy on what are the products that you build, for what purpose, with what policies behind. Um, do they harm the environment in the step of production? Is it when you use them that they will harm the environment? So you need also to have this global reflection on the life cycle on your product. So you need to work with the industry people, with the people that are specialized in what your company is producing and selling. So it's a whole new um, way of working and internal stakeholder to onboard on the policy.
And you mentioned something interesting because you talked a lot about reporting. Do you have
Mhm.
example of experience of a case or a situation where data help like true sustainability initiatives?
Yeah. For example, with Ekimetrics, we work with a luxury company, and they had trouble assessing their supplier environmental impacts. Usually, when you work with suppliers, you have a data collection campaign. You send a questionnaire, and you hope they will understand it and they will fill it, because usually these questionnaires are built to like fill a certification, so you know that if they fill the questionnaire you will have an EcoVadis, you will have a CDP or whatever. But when you are a small company working on, I don't know, bread leather, you don't have carbon officers, so scope 1 to 3 you don't know what it is. uh, Impact of your activity on biodiversity, you don't know what it is. So data and AI can help that. First, you can collect the data. If your supplier is a mid-sized company, big company, they have a lot of this questionnaire, but they have the data somewhere because they do a reporting. So they have the KPI, they have the policy. So rather than asking them to fill another questionnaire, you collect the data they have and you pre-fill the questionnaire. So they just have to do a validation to maybe rewrite some of the answers, but it will help them gain some time and efficiency and data quality. Then for the suppliers that have nothing, you can do estimations, because now we have more and more data related to activity sector on carbon, on energy usage, even on biodiversity. You have some databases like Encore. With the activity sector, we can have estimation of the impact on some key biodiversities area. So we can do estimation, like it's the start. Of course, it's not going to be like a GHG protocol exercise or an inventory and biodiversity, but it's a start. You have something, you know where to start, you know what's the key action you can put in place to reduce your environmental impact. So that's like an example of using data and AI to reduce environmental impacts on uh, our like your own perimeter, but also your supplier perimeters. And in sector like CPG and luxury, we know that the main impacts are within the suppliers and within the production phases of these products.
And I think I strongly suggest the audience. I think you have a very interesting demo online, right? I think it's on the YouTube channel of Ekimetrics on your own.
Yeah, we have a demo because we built that to showcase, or in terms of data collection, you see like that the AI is able to pre-fill the questionnaire, and you see that you have the source, so you have the data lineage for an audit. Like when we fill the scope of emission, we know it's in the annual report of this company, and we also show what the ability for the chatbot also to answer supplier questions.
Awesome. And it's perfect transition because one of the big question of this, episode was how can we leverage AI for sustainability? So you mentioned like all this data collection aspect. Do you have any other areas where it can be applied?
Yeah, so we have like this sort of triptych. We help our client with AI to collect, to analyze, and then to act. So data collection, but data quality as well. Not only you do the data collection, but you can also see the gaps, see the mistakes, see the data that are going to be missing. So then you can have a roadmap. Like if I have 5% of real data and all the other were estimated, well, for next year, I can try to reach the 10%, the 15%, because I work with my suppliers. I know them. I can give them tools. I can give them methodologies, or I work with my teams because I have factories in South America and it's not yet covered. I can work with them. I can build the data lakes, build the sensors. So this uh, step of data quality is going to be uh, the real deal within the future, because like doing the report with AI, doing presentation with AI, it's cool, but if the data is wrong, everything will be wrong. So you can use AI as long as you want, with as expert as you want. If the data is incorrect, it will be incorrect at the end. So you need to be able to be sure that the data is correct to do the right estimation if you estimate the data, and to clearly report that. Like if it's incorrect, you know how you can improve that at least. So that's the part on data collection and data quality. Um, then you have the reporting phases. It's, I would say, the main evolution when you had AI before machine learning and now generative AI. It's the ability to work, interact with qualitative narrative content, and more within the CSR revolution, we have more and more narrative content to be able to produce, to monitor, to explain to auditors. In the CSRD, it's 70% of the KPIs are narrative. So it's policies, procedures, how you do something, what's your objectives on that. And with generative AI, we can extract big paragraphs, and more with the LLM, we see that the context window is getting higher. So we are able to integrate reports, policies, procedures of the company, security procedures, and then we can compare this to a regulation. So we can say to a client regarding the CSRD, regarding each data point, this is what is in your report, what is in your website, and what you need to enhance. Because, for example, regarding this risk, you have a policy that is explaining how you measure, how you mitigate this risk on a global level. But in the CSRD, it's mentioned that you need to do it at the site level. So at the site level. So this degree of finesse, of deepness, we can do it with generative AI. And then, of course, we can also do the cross framework, because when you are even a medium-sized company, you have a lot of CSR framework. Like you have the CSRD
Mm.
because it's mandatory, but you also have GRI, SASB, ISO, EcoVadis, B Corp. So there is a lot of, and you can do with AI interoperability between the frameworks. Like I know that if you cover this item in CSRD, I can also explain, and I can also rewrite the policies, rewrite your report, so you can fill this other report. And of course, you can verify, you can audit as well. For the audit industry, it's going to be like a real deal, because usually when you do audit, you don't have the time to audit everything, so you work by sampling. So
Yeah.
you come, you sample a company, you see, okay, you have 60 buildings, we are going to see these 3 buildings, and then in these 3 buildings you have 20 KPI, I will assess only 5, because they don't have time. So with AI, they will be able to have at least a pre-audit, pre-assessment on all the policy, all the KPI of the company, and they will be able to target the one that may be problematic, where you are not sure, when the wording is not clear. So that's also good for auditing and for uh, better compliance, better improvement of the companies, to assess green claims as well. Like we we have more and more regulation in Europe, in France, on green claims, because in the 20 past years, we saw a lot of green claims for a company like my produce. It's green. It's going to save the planet. It's going
Yeah.
to save the biodiversity. Obviously, it's not relevant. It's not accurate. It's not correct. So with the law on green claims, you can also tailor an AI within the regulation. Then you can assess a report, but you can assess also advertisement, like a video, an image, and you can easily point the green claims, and then point to a company how they can improve, what do they need to change, if there is a proof that is missing. Because for some green claim, you need to have, for example, a complete GHG protocol exercise to prove a claim. So if there is not, the AI will detect it and like point that to you as well.
Perfect. And do you have example? I think we mentioned in a previous episode, like using AI for, like, I think Decathlon is using AI to calculate the price for like a circular business model. And I think it's, for me, it's one of the best example of, like, AI is enabling a lot of companies to go into the circular world, because before, how can you calculate, the price of the product that you
Yeah, of course.
will rebuy, for example? Do you have example like that, like where AI can significantly help companies become more sustainable?
Yeah, let's have some examples regarding the different type of technology because AI has become a buzzword with
Yeah.
ChatGPT and the LLMs, but it's generative AI. AI and machine learning have existed for many, many years, and we had a lot of use cases like before the emergence of GPT and generative AI. So, for example, computer vision. Computer vision, it exists like from numerous years. When you go to bank and you have a check, it's computer vision that is reading the check. So you can use computer vision to track deforestation, to track pollution, because when you have satellite imageries, when you have photographies of a forest, but photographies taken at zero point 0.5 second during weeks and months, you can spot deforestation, you can spot pollution, you can even spot fire. You have an NGO startup in France called Pioneer that are able to detect fire way faster and accurate that human eye, because within the picture, within computer vision mixed with machine learning model, you can predict that. So you can predict deforestation. With the EU deforestation regulation, you need to be able to measure the link deforestation to the products. By using this type of algorithm within your suppliers, you can spot that. Then you have machine learning. Of course, machine learning, it's very um, like it's an old AI models. It's used in numerous industries, and you can do carbon estimation with machine learning because we have more and more bilan carbone, GHG exercice protocol that are public. So we can use this public database to train a machine learning model that will be able to estimate the carbon estimation based on activity sector. We can also analyze weather data, satellite imageries, and we can also predict likelihood of wildfires. We can also improve climate models. Recently, we saw a lot of climate models getting improved by machine learning because um, for example, in climate science, you have what's called attribution, because when you have an extreme event, you want to know if it's linked or if it was, I would say, I don't have the word, but like it's yeah, profuse. Like if it's if regarding climate change, these precise heating event uh, is has a more likelihood to come, and is it more severe? So using machine learning with a lot of data, you can be more precise in the attribution field for precise climate extreme climate event. You have the time series as well. Time series has been used from the year in the industry to predict water waste usage, to predict also what can be the consumption, what are the pipelines, what are the companies, the factories that are at risk, because we know it might need some maintenance. You have the what if scenarios as well to simulate, for example, one action. You can simulate what will be the carbon abatement, what will be the environmental impact that you reduce within your supply sustainability strategy. So it like before doing some investment in a new product, in a new technology, in a new factory, you can simulate not only the cost impact and the revenue, but also the environmental impact. And of course, we have natural language processing, retrieval augmented generation, where you can pre-fill the questionnaire, you can do the gap analysis, you can do the document management. We also have the graph now, the ability to convert documentation into graphs. Typically for supplier strategy, you have a lot of startups using this technology to be able to have detailed information on a supplier, what they are doing, what's the data, and how you can help them improve. So a lot of the AI technology have use cases. You have papers from Sasha Luciani on that, where she lists all the AI technology and all the use cases that can be done within sustainability, climate change, and biodiversity protection.
Perfect. And I have to have this question because it's coming all the time. It's like we talk a lot about data and AI, but what is the CO2 impact of such technologies?
Well, the problem that we have is it's hard to measure because now the main LLM models from OpenAI, from Anthropic, from the other companies are closed, meaning we don't know the parameters. We don't know the condition of training, in what country it was trained, what was the duration of the training, what's the CPU, what's the TPU, what's the GPU that were used, what was the duration of the post training, what was the duration of the RLHF. So it's hard to have actual data, and actually you have more and more people asking for that. You have the energy star system in the US. They did a pledge to have actual data on that, but luckily we can do estimation because you have an open source model that have or are close in terms of performance from these LLM closed models. So we can do estimation. And you have also a paper from Sacha Luciani on that. And in France, Data for Good did a livre blanc on this topic as well. So, for example, we know that in terms of estimation, training GPT 3.5 had led to 500 ton of CO2 emission. The main problem that we have now with AI in terms of consumption is in the past it was only used by scientists and like some people in some industries. Now it's widely used within the GPT models, and the main impacts are going to be in the US usage phase, what we call the inference, meaning it's not going to be the training with the main emission. And for that, they did also the calculation regarding the inference. Uh, let's say for 100 million users that do one query in GPT per day, in terms of estimation, it's going to be 100,000 ton of CO2 per year. So we had 500 ton once for the training. Now we have 100,000 ton per year. Then when you do optimization on the models, for example, OpenAI, they put in free GPT-4o. GPT-4o, it's an omni model, meaning it can also treat image, sound, and video, so it have more parameter. And now, just by putting GPT-4o in the free version for everyone, we can estimate that it will be more emission. So we had 100,000 ton for GPT 3.5. Now it's estimated to be 2.5 million ton for the same user for one query per day. So just by doing this type of evolution, and because the impact is in the inference, you have more and more emission. And then also what's thing that is important, it's why you do AI. Because first, you don't have to put AI everywhere. There is when tell AI, it's generative AI because we have like data models, data science, classic machine learning models that work well. So you don't need to put generative AI for all the use cases, and the use cases will be important because, for example, we have reports that in US, ExxonMobil, which is a utility company, they are using generative AI in petrol fields to have a better extraction. Well, this usage of AI, we have estimation that it can lead to plus 20,000 ton of CO2 per day. So we had the 500 ton of CO2 for
Mhm.
GPT 3.5 training. Now using it to enhance, to improve the oil and gas extraction is going to be plus 20,000 ton of CO2. So it's always important to keep in mind the use cases and the impact of these use cases. So we need to understand why we use it. Is it relevant? Is there a less emissive technology in the usage that do the same work or help as well to reduce the impact? And for that, you have a great document actually that was proposed by the AFNOR, which is the NGO that proposed the ISO norms in France. It's an after spec on frugal AI, and they explain very deeply what's the different steps when you train an AI. You do the inference, you do the post training, etc. You do the usage, and for each of these steps, they explain what can be the impacts, how you can measure them. They give formulas and that, and they give also tools, because you have some Python package that you can use, like Code Carbon, Carbon Tracker, Ecology, to at least estimate what will be the impact of the projects, of the AI models that you want to deploy, that you are building.
Perfect. William, thank you so much. It was really, really interesting. Thank you so much
Thank you,
for
Fabien.
sharing all of
Thank you
that.
for
And
having me.
so, if the audience wants to learn more, can they go on the Ekimetrics website, on your YouTube channel, maybe?
Yeah, the Ekimetrics website, the YouTube of Ekimetrics, and don't hesitate to ask us questions. We regarding all the sustainability question, the team have the direct link with the people and can answer all your question on AI use cases, AI impacts, what we do, how we build the projects in Ekimetrics to measure, to track the emission and the impact of all our projects, and be able to reduce these impacts, because it's important for us to not build projects to build projects, and not build AI for sustainability projects, but then the company noticed that well, we build a project to help them reduce their emission, but it emits way more emission
Mm.
because it's emissive.
And they can follow you on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah, as well.
Perfect. William, thank you so much. For the audience, we hope you like this episode. It's a very important topic. So I hope the takeaway will be, very rich. If you want to continue the journey with us, you know the drill. You can go on www.pricingfortheplanet.com. We have a free newsletter where you can learn a lot of things about the intersection of business and sustainability. Thank you and be well.